Hello and welcome back to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. It's our aim to create better, more knowledgeable HVAC and building performance pros. We do that by helping these two worlds better understand each other, not just the theory, not just the tools, but how buildings and HVAC systems actually work together in the real world. The ultimate goal is simple: better indoor environments for the people who live and work in them. Today's episode, Shreyas Sudhakar joins us to talk about his path from rocket propulsion engineering, and if you know me, you know space is near and dear to my heart, to his transition to building high-quality heat pump installs in California. Eric and I found him through his thoughtful LinkedIn posts, and he also shared a friend's relentless heat pump evangelism that finally pushed him to look deeper. And once he did, the tech clicked. He realized HVAC and rockets share the same core idea: moving energy through systems, and the math is not as far apart as it sounds. It's plumbing. Now, what really pulled him in was the homeowner experience. After talking with homeowners on Nextdoor and Reddit, and even calling contractors for quotes himself, he kept hearing the same frustrations. Heat pumps feel expensive, contractor advice is inconsistent, trust is low, and myths like heat pumps don't work in the cold. Well, tell me about it. They work in the cold. Those myths still show up, even in mild California climates. Shreyas' view is simple. Most homeowners do not care what the equipment is called. They care about comfort, noise, bills, safety, and the best outcome is when the system is so reliable, they barely think about it. So he's here today to talk about Vayu. It's a lean heat pump installation company that operates with vetted subcontractor partners. He also has a heat pump newsletter and a podcast, both focused on education for homeowners, technicians, and policy folks. Vayu handles the end-to-end process from load sizing and equipment selection to permits and rebates, while partner shops focus on the craft of installation. His definition of success is not just a happy install day, but a customer still loving the system a decade later, and the technicians thriving because the model removes desk work and supports quality work at scale. So let's get into this conversation with Shreyas Sudhakar on scaling quality HVAC from rockets to heat pumps.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Eric Kaiser right here. The wild Bill Spohn way over there. And our special guest on this episode, I'm probably going to screw this pronunciation up, but here goes, Mr. Shreyas Sudhakar.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Yes. All right. We're doing good. Well, welcome to the show. Bill, what do you got for us today?
Shreyas, I became aware of him through LinkedIn and then watched a lot of his posts. That's where a lot of our guests come from, frankly. They post interesting things on LinkedIn, very sincere things that are in alignment or adjacent to things that we think about or talk about. I think Nate Adams is a big fan of yours.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have him nagging me by text message all the time.
There you go. Okay. So that may be another reason why you're here. So you deal in heat pumps, and I'll let you explain a little bit about your background, because I think that's also very interesting. And then what led you to do what you're doing in California with heat pumps.
So I stumbled into heat pumps completely by accident. My background's as an engineer. So I was a rocket propulsion engineer before I stumbled into HVAC. And so I used to design, build, test, launch rockets. So I worked at companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, and everything from like initial napkin sketches of parts to I was up in Alaska physically installing an engine into one of the rockets that we were launching. So had a lot of fun doing that. Got to the point where I knew 80% of the things, and to get that last 20% would have been the next 40 years of my career. And I like having my hands in a lot of pots, and I like doing a lot of things, and getting super deep and technical in one particular discipline didn't really feel like the best fit for me. And so the stars aligned where I had an opportunity to start something myself. So I moved up to the Bay Area where everyone goes to start their own Silicon Valley dream. And I spent a while just trying to start a company and failing miserably. So I looked into cargo ships. I looked into launching rockets off of cargo ships. I went in a lot of different ways and ended up talking to a friend about energy and renewables. And he just kept harping on heat pumps. And he's like, heat pumps are great. They're a great way to electrify buildings. We can cut a lot of emissions by using them. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. Sure. Like, white boxes outside of my house. Why do I care? Like, I work on cool things. And eventually he kept pestering me enough that I started looking into them. And when I looked at the tech, I realized, hey, this isn't actually that different than a rocket engine. Like, rockets are like, we call ourselves space plumbers. And really, it's a bunch of tubes and a bunch of moving heat and energy from one place to another. And fundamentally, that's what HVAC too is. You're moving energy from one place to another. And so all of the basic math is pretty much identical. And then where it really clicked for me is I just started talking to people. So I went on Nextdoor and I went on Reddit and I started messaging homeowners that were getting heat pumps installed in their houses. And I just talked to them and they all said the same stuff. It's like, this is really expensive. I don't trust these contractors. Everyone's saying conflicting things. I don't know who to trust. And I just kept getting those same messages over and over and over and over again. And then I tried going through the process myself and I called some contractors around, pretended to get quotes for my own house. And I realized how miserable that experience was. And a lot of them were still selling me on gas furnaces and telling me that heat pumps don't work. And heat pumps don't work in the cold. And mind you, in California, cold is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold. That's bitter, Arctic cold. And normal cold is 65. But yeah, that's what got me into this space in the first place.
Man, 45, that's prime heat pump weather right there, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where they're just working good.
Exactly. Everyone talks about how the ratings don't necessarily matter because you have to consider the efficiency at your climate zone, but we are right at zone 4 climate, which is what all the ratings are designed around. So it is primo.
Yeah, that is definitely some premium area for heat pumps there. And that's funny because we hear that a lot is heat pumps don't work in cold climates. But yeah, I think we're proving that wrong. I can say Bill and I are both proving that wrong right now.
That's right. We're 20 degrees Fahrenheit right now, and it's early afternoon.
It was 19 when I got up this morning. 2 heat pumps here chugging right along, keeping nice and warm.
I'm freezing out here. It's 65.
Well, that's a you problem, Trey. So you started a business, or did you start a couple businesses? What's going on with that? You do education and installation?
Yeah. So I've started a couple heat pump companies. I'm on to Vayu now, which is my second heat pump installation company. And I do a lot of education. And so I really think education is one of the biggest gaps in the market. And homeowners just this is really technical stuff. And I think a lot of us in the industry, we do a good job talking to each other in very technical lingo, but we don't necessarily do the best job all the time of talking to homeowners about what they really care about, which is, I want to be warm in the winter. I want to be cool in the summer. I don't want to sweat. I want to make sure that my baby isn't breathing in carbon monoxide. That's what homeowners care about. And so I've been spending a lot of my time trying to connect the dots and distill some of the deeply technical stuff into more of why it matters. How do we do this? What are the levers that we can pull to help scale these systems across the country and get more people naturally reaching for them? That's what my writing centers around. I write a newsletter called Heat Pumped. And then my day job is Vayu. Vayu is my heat pump installation company. And so we're installing heat pumps. We got started in the Bay Area. We've recently expanded to Los Angeles as well. And we manage the whole installation process from start to finish. We're a licensed California contractor. We do all of the stuff early on from load sizing. We use utility bill data where it's available to anchor that into the sizing. We select the equipment. We work with our technicians to get it installed in people's houses, and hopefully they're super happy. And then we also do all the rebates, permits, incentives, which I've found a lot of technicians steer miles away from that stuff because it's a lot of work to do it right.
When you talk about the education and the heat pumped newsletter, that's the homeowner talk? Is that homeowner facing generally, or always, or partially, or what?
It's partially. I try my best to make it super distilled to homeowners, but I do get pretty nerdy still. We have a real big mix of people we have that subscribe. So we have equipment manufacturers, we have people in public policy and lawmakers that subscribe. We have folks in the industry, technicians and business owners. So it really catches a lot of different angles. And we have some content that fits all of those boxes.
So when you're talking to homeowners, especially because that is a challenging space to play in, what's probably one of the biggest things that you find that homeowners don't necessarily understand about heat pumps? And how could the industry communicate better on that?
Yeah. The first thing that I notice is that a lot of people, frankly, don't know what a heat pump is, or they don't know that it exists to begin with. If you tell them the word and they're not familiar, they think, okay, it's like some pump that I install in my house that pumps heat into the house. And so people are familiar with air conditioners. Like that's just a word that is it's out there. People are familiar with furnaces, even if the word doesn't necessarily say what it does. Like most everyone knows what a furnace is, but very few people really know what a heat pump is. So there are like two buckets of customers that I work with. The first one is the super nerdy, tech forward person that has done a lot of research and they know they want a heat pump and they come to me specifically looking for a heat pump. But then the other half of our customers, and probably the much bigger pool of them, are looking at it from other reasons. They just reached out to an HVAC contractor in general. They want to add air conditioning or their furnace broke and they're just looking to remove and replace. And so I think that's probably the very first bridge to cross is like even getting that awareness out there. But I think the counterpoint to that is most homeowners don't really care what the name of the box is, how it works, any of that stuff. They care that they're comfortable. They care that their energy bills are not crazy high. They care that it's relatively quiet. I like to say like we've done our job well if the homeowner forgets about us after we've come and left. They think about the thermostat on their wall. Hopefully they just set a schedule on it and forget it and never touch it again. And the equipment's in a closet or attic somewhere and it's just working. And hopefully they remember us enough to change their filters, but that's about it.
That's kind of a good goal to have is you really want people to, in a way, forget about you, but still remember you.
Right.
And remember you for what they don't have to deal with.
Yeah. And a lot of the West Coast doesn't have air conditioning to start. And so like a lot of the customers we work with have wall furnaces or floor furnaces. So this really passive heating system with extremely horrible distribution. And I had one in my last apartment and we had one floor furnace in the living room of our 2-bedroom apartment. So basically what that meant is like right around our kitchen table got super hot. Like the bedrooms were frigid. The kitchen was frigid. If we sat on one side of the couch, maybe we'd catch a little bit of the heat, but on the far side of the couch, like good luck. And then in the summer, like we open our windows and turn on the fans and hope for the best. I remember that. And I remember like how horrible it was. And then we put in ductless heat pumps in the bedrooms and the living room. And it's great. It was super even, super consistent. I would really like avoid working in my office on really cold days because it was just too cold to function. And I had a little space heater under my desk and another one on the other side of me. And that was what got me through. And I think the bar is so low in some of the houses that I work with. Like it sounds tacky, but we can really change people's lives putting this equipment in. So it's cool. And it's cool to have experienced it myself.
When it comes to starting a contracting business and being a licensed contractor in California, that's no easy feat. A lot of times people buy into those because there's already something of a structure in place. But you started one from ground zero, from nothing?
Yeah, I started one from ground zero twice, actually. So definitely getting a license is no joke. Usually California has like a 4-year experience requirement. And so they want you to have worked in the trade for at least 4 years and have someone sign off on that experience. And fortunately for me, like I said, HVAC and rockets, while not necessarily the same thing, have a lot of commonalities. And so I was able to cover the majority of that experience requirement using my bachelor's degree and master's degree in engineering. So that covers a good chunk of it. And I actually do have a good amount of practical experience doing the things in HVAC. So like we were making flare fittings for the piping we were connecting. We were doing pressure tests. That experience from my engineering career actually transferred, and the license board said that it aligned with what they were looking for. So that's step zero, is like getting a license. But the harder part is, how do you actually install these things? How do you do a good job? And I just learned by doing. So the very first system we installed was like a multi-zone mini split, and me and a couple buddies, it was for my father-in-law in their house. And so he was like willing to take a gamble on me, and me and a couple buddies went in and we installed it ourselves. And we hit every snag along the way. Like we pulled a vacuum and we couldn't hold it. We kicked some refrigerant lines. We cut our wiring too short. And man, it gives you a lot of respect for the technicians in the field when you do this stuff yourself. Because I just run into so many people online talking about, oh, it's so easy to put up a mini split. You could do it. Anyone could DIY it. But like when you actually go and do it, there's so many tricks of the trade that you just get with time and reps that you just have to do it. And so that first one, it was pain, but we figured it out and we got it working and we bought all the tools. And then we were lucky to get some really experienced technicians and a really experienced HVAC engineer advising us. So a big shout out to my friend Cyrus. He is like an HVAC instructor at Berkeley, and he helped my first company get off the ground. He advised us on a lot of the little things you don't know where to start, like how to get a business license, how to pull a permit, how you lay out a system for a house. And then we were lucky to get some really talented, experienced technicians that were really independent and probably could run their own business themselves that helped us do the first few installs. And I was just in the field with them that whole time. So I've probably been on site for 50, 60 plus installs now. The best way to learn is like crawling in the crawl space behind them and being their helper, handing them tools, like holding a line set when they need you to. That's how I learned. So I'm an HVAC business owner, but also like really, I think I still have so much to learn. The best place to learn is like in the field with the technicians. And even now, like a few years in, I still run into things that this is my first time encountering it. And my technician is like, oh, easy. Like you do this, this, and this. I've seen this before. Don't worry about it. And I'm fortunate to have had great mentors that have shown me the ropes.
So how many people do you have in the company now? How big has the company gotten to?
We're tiny. So Vayu operates with a primarily subcontracted model. And so I run the business. We have a project manager that helps oversee all of the details for the project and make sure it's moving through all the right gates. And we have some remote people that help us with permits and incentives. And then we're lucky to partner with some really great independent HVAC shops that actually tackle the installation. And so it's actually been a really beneficial arrangement because these shops that we work with, a lot of them don't even have a website, or if they do, it's like a very simple built in the 90s sort of thing. Some of them are like a little rough and tumble around the edges, but they are technically sharp. They know how to pull a vacuum. They know how to measure static pressure. They know to strain relieve their wiring. They know all of those little details that make a difference in a quality installation. But they hate being in front of a desk. They hate sitting there and pulling permits. They hate going to a bunch of job walks and sales calls and talking to customers, not knowing if they'll get the sale or not. And frankly, like a lot of them don't understand how manual J works. They don't understand sizing. They don't know how to like specify a heat pump for the house. So like I give them the right system. They know how to install it really well, but it works great. And we pull the permits, we file the rebates, we do the engineering, we pick out the equipment. They show up on the day of the install with the equipment, and they know what they're doing, and they figure out all of the like little details in the field. So that's how we structure it. We have a pretty lean operation, but we're able to do a lot with it.
When it comes to attracting customers, does Vayu attract them? Or does sometimes as the contractor, your subcontractor say, here's a project I want you to work on with me? Does that happen both ways?
Primarily, the projects are coming through Vayu, but occasionally we do have our subcontractors being like, hey, I got a customer that wants rebates and incentives, and I have no idea where to start. Can you help me out? And then we'll bring them through the value pipeline as well. But largely, we're working with our subcontractors on customers that we've acquired. And we've done all the legwork before our technician steps foot in the house. The project is sold, the equipment is mostly spec'd out, and they're just going in to fine tune all the installation details and get ready for the day of the install.
Are there any special tools you use for either business or in the trades that give you a leg up? Things you want to talk about and maybe not reveal all your secrets?
This is one of those things that I still have a lot to learn about. When I got started, I just stitched together a lot of information. I used Airtable and Zapier and like a bunch of these like off the shelf tools and glue everything together. We're still figuring out like what the best mix of software and hardware and tools in the field are to work through the jobs. I mean, I think with HVAC, there's really no magic silver bullet. Like I can't tell you like I have the Turbo Encabulator 3000 and that solves all of my problems. And you know this, Bill, like with TrueTech, you have thousands and thousands of tools and like all of them have their applications. They work to solve one particular pain point, but there's so many pain points across running the business, doing the installs in the field. It's hard to point at any one thing, but really it's the basics. In the field, it's like you have your vacuum pump, you have your gauges, you have your multimeter. Like,
okay. What do you think is next for value and Shreyas for that matter?
So step 0 was proving that the business model worked. And so we needed to show that we could attract homeowners that thought that we could do a quality installation. We needed to prove that we could do a quality installation while not having these technicians on our staff and still maintain all of the high standards that you would expect for a quality heat pump installation. We needed to make sure that we could actually make the permits and rebates and all of those things easy for our customers so they're not dealing with a bunch of heartache and paperwork. And we needed to show that we could go from start to finish and do that work. That was step 0. That was the past year, was proving that we could do those things. And it was very concierge. There was a lot of doing things that don't scale to make that happen. But what we've ended up with is like an initial batch of customers that have been really happy with the results, like heat pump installs that have been still affordable and high value, but maintaining the base quality standards that you need to ensure a long life for the equipment. So what's next is figuring out how we scale that. We just recently moved into the Los Angeles market, and so it's a new city for us. We're going to take that same blueprint that we proved out in the Bay Area and use it to service the millions of homes in this city. And we're growing our team. We're bringing on some people that will help everything from the front end sales side of things to the back end, all of those tools and processes to make sure that we can make it as seamless as possible to issue a permit, as make sure all the rebates get filed on time, make sure that like the customer knows when the technician is showing up and the technician knows that too. All of that simple stuff, that's where we're in right now. And so we're focused on scaling, but really quality is more important than scaling. And we have to make sure that as we keep growing, our service only gets better, not worse. And so that's something that I'm always keeping an eye on and keeps me up at night. But that's where we're at. I hope at one point we'll be a large, maybe the biggest heat pump installer in California, and we can serve a lot more cities across the state. But we have a while to go to get there.
How do you measure success along this arc of progress? When you said you want to make sure you do it right, what are some of the parameters you use to say you're doing it right?
I'd say there are 3 things there. One is customer happiness on the day of the installation. We finished the installation and the customer is like, that was awesome. I loved working with your technician, Tommy. They did a great job. They didn't track mud into my house. I have air conditioning now. My cat loves it. They're sitting in front of the vent. I think that's success criteria number 1. I think success criteria number 2 is 10 years from now, that customer is like, I still love my heat pump. I've told all my neighbors about it. I want them to get value heat pumps too. This has been great. I haven't had any major issues. All I've really done is change the filter and done a deep cleaning a couple of times. That's success criteria number 2. And then I think success criteria number 3 is our technicians are happy. We're helping them grow their businesses. They enjoy working with us. They trust us. We take the weight off their shoulders and we give them a nice flow of business that they can use to grow their companies. So I think that's success criteria number 3. And frankly, I love making my customers happy, but the thing that motivates me the most is like working with the technicians that I work with, because it's been the part of my job I've always enjoyed the most. Even when I was working in aerospace, I've learned 10 times more working with the technicians building the stuff than from the like engineers designing it or like anywhere else. I think that's a very special relationship. And that's the one that if I succeed in only one thing, I hope I succeed in all 3 of those. But that's the one I think that brings me a lot of personal satisfaction.
So you said you use a lot of subcontractors in this. I'm curious, what have you put in place to really help keep the quality up there since you're not dealing with employees? How are you keeping the quality of the installations and the customer service up through those subcontractors?
It's a great question, Eric. And I think this is something that a lot of businesses have tried and failed at. You can see it, especially in the solar industry. A lot of the solar industry uses subcontractors, and there have been varying degrees of success in the actual end result delivered to customers. And so that's definitely one of those existential questions I think about a lot. A big part of it is being on site with them and like being in the field with them and making sure that we are doing the things that we say that we're doing. First of all, like before we ever get in the field with them, there's a lot of screening that we do with potential subcontractors. I have conversations with them beforehand. They show me pictures of their work. Sometimes I go on to past job sites of theirs and see their work in action. Like before they even enter our ecosystem, we do a lot of vetting and we're looking for things like, do they own a vacuum pump? Do they use it? Do they have gauges? Because there's a lot of checking the trucks that skip those steps. And then there's always a continuous feedback loop on every project. So they're sending us photos from the job site when they're pulling a vacuum. We're doing some field verification and still like occasionally spot check. Frankly, I know there's a lot of tools on the market for this. I'm really excited about Measure Quick in the suite, and like I want to roll it out eventually. We haven't quite gotten there yet because with our subcontractor model, at the moment, we're letting our technicians use the tools that they already own and are familiar with, and not all of those talk to the suite. And so if they have a vacuum pump and gauges and a scale and all those things already, like I'm not going to make them go out and buy a new set. But really, it is just continuing to be in touch with the field. We don't just send them out and have them send us an invoice and call it good. We're getting a lot of insights and feedback from the field. We're spot checking that with our conversations with our customers after we complete the installs too, and making sure that they're saying the same things that our subcontractors are and they're happy with the results. But it's a hard problem. And I've seen it both ways. My last company, we had the technicians on staff. The company owned all the tools. We had the vans. We managed every little detail. And even still, it can be hard to get all of that information flowing the right way. What I've found is that some of the very best technicians in the trade are the ones that go off and start their own businesses. And so there is just this level of pride that the subcontractors we work with have. These are small subs. They're not large companies. And so on every installation, the owner is still on site and they view it as it's like a value project, but it's also their project and they're putting their sticker on it too.
It's craft work. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if there's anyone out there who's listening to the podcast and they're thinking this sounds interesting, it's the best place to go to your website to follow up as a potential contractor?
Please reach out. Our email's on our website at value.pro is our website. So if you're a contractor in California, you're looking to grow your business, you're a craftsman and you do quality work, I'd love to chat with you.
So as we've gone through the interview, the questions here today, I got a picture about you, your process, where you're headed, where step 1 is. Sorry, you said step 0. It's where step 1 is coming. This must be like countdown language from your rocket aerospace background. T-, right?
Yep.
What closing thoughts would you like to leave to our listeners?
I'm just humbled by all the knowledge there is and how much there is to learn in this industry. I think I came in with a lot of naivete and like early on, I was like, hey, I'm a rocket engineer. I can figure this out. And as I keep peeling the onion back, I just keep learning more and more and more. And a lot of times new information will challenge existing beliefs that I had. So I think I'm just honored to be a part of this community and have so many people around me that have mentored me and have taken me under their wing and helped me out. And that's one of the coolest things about this community. And I hope other people can continue to exemplify that, because I think there's a lot of smart people out there that don't know the industry, but have the aptitude if someone takes them under their wing. And so like, if you have a buddy that's like, hey, I want to get into HVAC, like, bring them on your van, show them like your blog or whatever. Like, that's a really special thing. And I'm lucky to have taken advantage of it.
Excellent. Any other questions, Eric, for Shreyas?
I'm sure I'll come up with something, but I think right now he's got answered a whole bunch of stuff for us. I'm not sure we want to bore our listener. Oh, no, excite our listeners.
Excite our listeners. Yes. Learn that vocabulary, Eric.
This might be too much for some of them. I don't know. You never know. They might be really excited to hear about this. I tell you what, the one other thing I wanted to ask was about the Heat Pumped podcast, or I've heard of that podcast. You said you also do a newsletter with that. How can people find out more about that?
Exactly. So you can check us out at heatpumped, pumped.org. So we have the newsletter, which goes out bi-weekly-ish, and then our podcast as well. So you can find all of that content on there. Like I said, there's a little bit on there for everyone. So if you're a homeowner, there's some homeowner facing stuff. If you're caring about the deep technical weeds, there's some stuff around that too. So if you're on the policy side and you care about rebates and incentives, we talk about that too. So that's where you'd find us.
Do you get out with your educational materials to do any online training with others or get out to conferences or things like that?
I'd love to do more of that. Not too much yet, but I know there's a lot of opportunities for that. I'd love your perspective. Where do you think the best opportunities to like meet faces in real life are?
HVACR School Symposium, which is next week. And I would say that AHR, there's something that NCI does called the High Performance Hangout. Around, how many people, Eric?
It's around 100 people, I think. We get together, something like that.
Yeah. It's not actually part of the show, but it's something done afterwards, and NCI coordinates it with a number of different vendors, including TruTech. And I'll say the Heat Pump Summit is another one, which is definitely up your alley, and that's coming back to Worcester, Mass. next September.
Yeah, I actually had Brent from the Heat Pump Summit on the Heat Pumped podcast a few episodes ago too, so he's a cool guy. And AHR is wild. I went to the one in Chicago a few years ago, and it's just like, you can get lost. So I'm glad to hear that there is smaller breakouts that might be easier to find the right people in.
Well, sounds good. Thanks for coming on the show. And we were interested in hearing what happens when you get in through step 1 a little bit, maybe into step 2, get you back on the show.
Would love to. Thanks for having me on. I had a lot of fun talking to y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shreyas.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Hopefully you caught a few of the pithy quotes from this episode. The best way to learn is crawling in the crawl space behind a great technician and handing them tools. Also, we do our job well if the homeowner forgets about us because the system just works. I also host the Res Talk podcast. That's RESTALK. We dig into the world of home energy ratings, workforce development, and the policies and programs shaping the future of residential energy performance. Now, if you like what you heard today and are not subscribed, just search for Building HVAC Science, your favorite podcast app, or just ask Alexa to play it. You can follow the show on Facebook by searching Building HVAC Science, and if you have questions, ideas for a future episode, or topics you want us to tackle, email us at marketing@TruTechTools.com, TruTechTools.com. The Building HVAC Science Podcast is a production of TruTech Tools Limited. In full disclosure, I'm a co-owner of TruTech. The opinions expressed in the show are those of my guests, my co-host, or myself, depending on who is speaking, of course. Now, if you're looking for tools or test instruments mentioned on the podcast, you can find many of them at TruTechTools.com. That's TruTechTools.com. And you can use the offer code HVACBS for a listener discount. I want to thank you for listening to and supporting the show. Subscribing helps you stay current and helps us reach more people who care about doing this work the right way. We appreciate you being part of the Building HVAC Science community. Until next time, take care.